Hello and welcome to What Makes America Tick. I'm your host, Congressman Troy Carter, and I proudly represent the best place in the country, Louisiana's 2nd Congressional District. Join me as we dive into an engaging conversation to answer the question, what makes America tick? Today, I am honored to be joined by someone who has spent his life fighting for justice, opportunity, and equity, not just in words, but in action. Senator Cory Booker believes that the American dream isn't real for anyone unless it's within reach for everyone. And that belief has been the guiding light on his journey from Newark to the halls of the United States Senate. Senator Cory Booker is a Rhodes Scholar, a Yale Law School graduate, a former Stanford football player who could have taken his talent anywhere, but instead he chose to go where he was most needed, and we thank God for that. After law school, he moved to Newark and founded a nonprofit to provide legal services to low-income families. And at just 29, he ran for and won a seat on the Newark City Council, where he championed affordable housing, health care, access, and public safety. As mayor of Newark, Senator Booker led a historic period of economic revitalization and community transformation, expanding green spaces, improving city services, reducing crime, and increasing educational opportunities. And since 2013, as a U.S. Senator from New Jersey, he has become one of the leading voices in Congress for criminal justice reform, economic fairness, environmental justice, and expanding access to health care. Senator Booker brings heart, purpose, and a deep sense of justice to everything he does. And today, we get to hear from him directly. A champion, a larger-than-life icon, someone who has the ability of everyday people, but has the knowledge, wisdom, and commitment to fight like a lion. Senator Booker, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. I'm really excited. I get to be guest number 6, too.
Guest number 6, and people are excited. We've teased this, and people can't wait to hear from you. We know that your historic speech on the Senate floor, which went 25 hours and 5 minutes, we'll get to that in a second. And we know it takes a lot of energy to do that, a lot of stamina.
Yes.
Tell me how you do that with this vegan lifestyle. We know that you've got a vegan lifestyle that fuels you. I've been in caucus meetings where we've teased you for eating all the spinach before we get some. So tell me about that, because we like to have a little fun on the show.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you. You're one of the guys that came in to really give me support in those final hours to get to 25. We know the body has limits. The spirit has none. And when you get the energy from friends and a community of people that you admire, frankly, it lifts you in the moment. But let's be honest, the American diet, they call it the standard American diet, is just sad. It really is. We unfortunately have seen an explosion of diet-related diseases in America. A vegan diet is not more healthy. We just are Americans that can't access healthy food. It's one of the reasons why I got on the Ag Committee, because there was just so much. I mean, we know this, from type 2 diabetes, hypertension, especially for black folks. The leading cause of death really is the food that we have access to and that we're eating. And so I started when I was an athlete, really looking at the diet that could best fuel athletic success. I'm far away from being that chiseled football player that I was, but you'd be amazed that now people like Tom Brady ate pretty much a vegan diet when he was in competition. We now see vegans that are bodybuilders and Olympic athletes. So I don't preach my diet. I tell people, choose the diet that works best for you, and this is the one that works best for me. But what I tell people is I've been a junk food vegan too, eating highly processed foods, too many carbohydrates and sugars. And so I always say to people, find the diet that's going to keep you healthy for a long time, because we all don't want more life in our years in our life. We want more life in our years. We want to be as healthy into the 80s and 90s as we possibly can.
And working around the clock as we do in Congress, oftentimes getting a healthy snack is not an easy thing.
No.
And sometimes grabbing a bag of chips, in my case, which
Yes.
is horrible for me, and you getting something far more healthier and more substantive, it's important that we let people know that taking care of your mental health, your
Yes.
physical health, your spiritual health, your emotional health is so critically important. We know that you recently had your 25 hours and 5 minutes, the longest floor speech, taking away the record from Strom Thurmond by some 47 minutes, symbolic of the energy, the commitment, and the the fact that while you broke this record, you didn't do it to break the record, but it's a good thing you did because that record was held while trying to prop up segregation.
Yes.
And now we have one talking about the current policies of this administration that can be equally as dangerous and damaging as this big, ugly bill and some of the other things. But you didn't just talk about Dr. Seuss. You didn't talk about reading the phone book. You didn't talk about killing time. You talked about substantive information that the American people, Republican, Democrat, Independent, and every other background needed to hear. And that speaks to your leadership. Your leadership, while you're a proud Democrat, you certainly recognize that America is made up of a lot of different faces, faiths, and backgrounds. Tell us about what went into your process to getting ready. What was going through your mind as you got to hour 1, hour 25? Many of us, I was proud to be in the chamber to cheer you on and to pray for your ability to continue. You did it with style, with grace, with intellect. Let me say to you now on behalf of all of our listeners, thank you for what you did and what you do.
Man, I first of all, being in the Congress with you, who represent the kind of leadership, I always say when you hear people talk about other folks, it's usually more of a reflection of who they are than who they're talking about. You are an inclusive leader and really one of the statesmen in Congress as a whole. But for me, as a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, you're one of our senior leaders. And so when I say that you coming into the chamber during that period for me, that I leaned on your spirit, I mean that very, very literally. I was, or figuratively, that I was leaning on that energy that you brought me. Look, you and I both know we have a nation that's divided on itself, that we have a president who tries to feed that divide, other people, us versus them folks. But we need leaders like you that are going to remind us that we belong to each other, that we're responsible for each other, we're invested in each other. And so when we prepared for this and really thought it through, we said, wait a minute, let's really make this substantive. We prepared over 1,000 pages and documents, including not just Democrats, but we really looked for Republicans, conservative think tanks, all criticizing this president. And the real theme was, this is not normal. What this president's doing is violative, not of democratic ideals, but of the democracy as a whole. So when we could quote from the Cato Institute and the Heritage Foundation and the Wall Street Journal, we wanted to show that this is not normal times, that this is a president that is truly doing things right now that are a threat, not just to our democracy, but immediately, as you know, with this really big, bad bill, to the health care, to the retirement security, to disabled families with disabilities, to children. And that was the urgency we felt. And then the last part, we wanted to elevate stories of people who don't often get talked about enough on the Senate floor. And I think the thing that I still get feedback from now, a few months later, is the stories of folks whose letters I read, who people could really relate to, their pain, their fear, their worry, and their hardship because of what this president is doing. So I want to just enforce this a lot because I love where you are from. My grandfather's from Monroe,
right.
so I feel very, very blessed that my roots are in Louisiana. I used to visit my great-grandmother down there. My grandfather went right over the state to Arkansas, Pine Bluff, University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff, to go to college. But so much of my family stories are hard scrabble people from your state.
We've got a pope now, man, that has good Louisiana,
roots.
New Orleans, 7th Ward roots.
Listen, we've gone, Louisiana is international in its fame and its recognition. But one thing you know from your district is right now as we speak, somebody is in their second, maybe even third shift at a diner or a restaurant. Somebody's doing very humble jobs in a hospital that is working 10, 15, 20 hours in a row or around the clock. We see these wildfires now. I was reading the story about a wildfire team parachuting, dropped into an area. They worked 16 hours literally fighting blazes in the most horrific, challenging work conditions. So we now know, because of what this president is doing, he's increasing through his bill energy costs. He's increasing healthcare costs. His tariffs are increasing the cost of everything from child car seats to pressures on small businesses, that more and more families are going to have to try to find more and more ways to make ends meet, which often means less time with their children and more time at work trying to get more hours or extra shifts. That's what you stand up for. You and I have known each other for a long time, and I love when I'm around you when the cameras aren't around, because that's when you see what people are really fighting for in those rooms. And I know you fight for the working person. I know you fight for people who are not getting a fair shake at their American dream. And what gives me such honor, and I talk about this, I'm writing a book right now, and how much strength I get from the community we've created in the CBC, the community we've created here in Congress of like-hearted people who are, and I wish we would allow live streaming of our CBC meetings, because they are funny. we definitely, Marsha Fudge threatened my life when I brought some vegan food in. I just want you all to know
People still talk about that, by the way.
Yeah. The statute of limitations may be over, but I was threatened by another congressperson if I brought more vegan food up there. But the truth of the matter is,
Stephen Horsford later years tried to do the same thing, got the same reaction.
Got the same treatment. But we are family. And I want to tell everybody listening to this is why I think podcasts like this are so important, is because we need to create more community, more connection. What's hurting us so much now is a sense of isolation, that we don't have a sense of belonging anymore. What was powerful about the civil rights movement or even the abolitionist movement, because sometimes they were meeting in secret in barns planning that infrastructure project called the Underground Railroad, but they found ways to make community through churches and other things like that. We are stronger than the challenges we have. We've just got to be willing to figure out ways to weave community together and stand in solidarity. I did not stand alone on that Senate floor, and you know that. I was not standing alone. I had ancestors all around me. I had friends like you who came in, dropped what you were doing. You were one of the busier men in Washington because of your senior status. You dropped what you were doing. You said, Booker's doing something. I got to be in that room to support him. You don't forget those things, and you know the strength we draw from community. I'm hoping the people listening to you right now will be intentional in this time of struggle and time of stress. Our strength is when we stand together.
That's a fact. And when you stood on the floor, and I indicate and I amplify, you stood. You didn't sit. You couldn't sit. You didn't leave the floor. You commanded the podium the whole time. Literally millions of people were chiming in.
Yes.
Literally millions of people in America were listening to what you had to say. And they were from all backgrounds. And we can't emphasize enough the importance that we learn to talk more to each other, less about each other.
Yes.
And while we're proud Democrats, we have to recognize that it is through bipartisan efforts of putting what's best for the people over a party, over a president, protecting and defending the rule of law. Our U.S. Constitution has to mean something. And we know environmental justice is another area that you and I share deeply.
Yes.
The Inflation Reduction Act was one of the largest infusions of money to deal with environmental injustice, to bring some help to, I represent Louisiana, a compilation of chemical plants up and down the river, all of which I represent. We understand the importance of industry, but industry cannot survive without safe, healthy communities that have the right to drink clean water, to breathe clean air. And we know that there's been an attempt of this administration to roll back many of the resources of the Inflation Reduction Act and to take away gains that we've enjoyed in environmental justice. I know this has been a passion of yours as well.
Look, my mom always tell me growing up, don't forget where you came from. So that's why I feel such allegiance to the state of Louisiana. So when I was on my environmental justice tour, I went to what's called Cancer Alley.
Yep. A distinction that we're not proud of,
No.
but we own it.
Yeah.
It's one that we don't like because it denotes something that is a darker side of who we are, and we can and do better. And some of the plants are, in fact, trying to do better.
Yes.
Many of which are still violators, and we've got to literally stay on their 1 yard line to bring violators to justice.
Well, the reason why I feel that connection is because New Jersey right now has the awful distinction of having more Superfund sites than any other state. I live in Newark, which has the similar thing, a river that was polluted. Literally, a plant that produced Agent Orange would just dump the Agent Orange into the water. And I will never forget, along the banks of the Mississippi, in a small black church, in a cancer cluster, sitting there meeting with people who came in, and brought me to tears because they kept talking about how many people in their families had died of cancer. So you hear this word cancer cluster, you don't understand that it is this explosion of a rate where people are losing their loved ones, their family members, their parents, their grandparents, their kids to cancer. And the day we got there was an alert of the particulate matter from one of these chemical factories that too much had been released into the air. And so when you say we're taking steps backward with this administration, they are allowing polluters to pollute more. They're allowing more chemicals to be released into our air. They're allowing the particulate matter that our children are breathing, that our elders are breathing, to be greater. And so they are allowing polluters to pollute, to pad profits, to not step up and do the responsible thing. And I'm glad that we always make a distinction. We should never paint with a broad brush. There are responsible companies in your state and my state that are trying to do the right thing. But when you don't have accountability, when you don't have a federal government that says, okay, I'm going to measure what you're doing, I'm going to set standards that you have to live up to, and if you fail to meet those standards, there will be consequences for that failure. You and I have grown up in accountability. We found it in school. We found it in sports. If you're going to be a wide receiver on Stanford's team, you had to run this fast, you had to lift this much.
And you had to make the right grade.
Yes.
You know, when I was a member of the state legislature, I had a pass to play. You had to have at least, and this is a low bar, at least a C.
Yes.
To be able to play.
Yes.
And when I tell you, Senator, I was fought because I said, I didn't care about these kids. No, I turned it and I said, athletic director, coach, you don't care about these kids because I want them to be able to read, write, and compute. Catching a ball, running fast is great, but we have to prepare our children academically. And so as we continue to fight for the whole body, right?
Yes.
It's important that we keep people clean and able to breathe and to have clean air. And the fight doesn't change. You know, I was in the legislature a whole long time ago, the state legislature, and we fought to make sure kids are having the holistic approach to their overall well-being. And now here we are in 2025 having many of those things challenged. And I'm going to pivot now and talk about the Supreme Court's recent decision about the Department of Education. Look, I'm a son of the South. We know very well about segregation. We know the 4 little black girls who had to be ushered into school with federal marshals while people spat on them and dogs and people yelled and there were attack dogs and the whole 9 yards. Those protections didn't come from local or state government. It came from the federal government.
Yes.
We know that with the Jim Crow laws, we know that the Reconstruction, you know, we were protected to be able to have education because of the federal government. When you start taking those protections away, that's damning for our country, and it's a huge step in the wrong direction.
I cannot agree with you more that most people don't understand the fullness of what the Department of Education does to ensure that everyone has an equal, fair access to education, whether it's beautiful children with disabilities, whether it's children that have endured discrimination, or whether it's just trying to create a better access, not just to K through 12 education, but to higher education as a whole. We know that education is a pathway towards success. So many of kids, like I am here because of HBCUs, for example.
As am I.
You know, my dad went to North Carolina Central. My mom went to Fisk University. I told you my grandparents went to.
I'm a proud Xavier University. Shout out for Xavier University.
Yes, and these are portals and pathways to American dreams. And when you have a president that is clawing back money that helps people afford to go to college, I always tell folks, why do we have one of the biggest explosions of the middle class in all of human history between the 40s and the 1970s, 80s, before the Reagan administration came in and attacked these very programs that were lifelines in the middle class? Well, why did we have one of the reasons we had that was because things like the GI Bill, because that Pell Grants used to cover 30, 40 or more percent of people's college tuition and college costs. Now we live in a time where we're choking the ability for people to have access. And this attack on the Department of Education and clawing back of funds and resources for people to get the education they need, whether K through 12 or access to college, is not only going to hurt individual students yearning for a better dream, but let me tell you right now, China, they're doubling down on investing on people getting engineering degrees and science degrees and becoming professors. And you and I both know that the HBCUs are the number one pipelines for black PhDs, for blacks in research in the sciences and STEM subjects. So I don't understand that how, and we need to push more people to understand that. When you're attacking the Department of Education, you're just not surrendering and abandoning commitment to fair access to education. You're not just hurting people's access to college. You're hurting America and American global competitiveness. Because in a global knowledge-based global knowledge-based economy, it's no longer the cobalt in the ground or the oil. The nations that will succeed are the nations that succeed based upon their brain power, their ingenuity, their success. The more you learn, my grandfather used to tell me, the more you earn. Yeah, and we as a nation, the more success our students have in school, in training and apprenticeship programs, and technical training and college education and higher education, the more we succeed as a society. So the president that is taking that ladder for so many people to a better economic life and pulling that ladder out, that president is wounding not just the student that fell or didn't get a chance to go a rung higher, they're hurting the economy and America as a whole.
And as we talk about the dangers of dismantling the Department of Education, we pivot over to another aspect of this big, ugly bill. And two components that we know many people, we've concentrated a lot on what it will mean to Medicaid recipients.
Yes.
We've concentrated a lot on what it means to veterans, of our senior citizens, SNAP benefits for people who need help with nutritional diets. We've concentrated on the impact it will have on people living with disabilities. We've concentrated on the impacts it will have to those people who would literally die in rural communities when these rural hospitals close. These are not just Democrats or Republicans, black or white. This is everyone. In my home state of Louisiana, better than 30% of everyone living in the state has some way, shape, or form dependence on Medicaid. In our speaker's district, Speaker Mike Johnson has 40% of his constituents depend upon Medicaid. Yet we see this ugly bill that was scored by the CBO, as we know, a independent, nonpartisan body, that some 17 million people will lose their benefits. Those are aspects that we talk about a lot, but two areas that we don't talk about as much. And I want to talk about the whole picture of this big, ugly bill, but let's talk about the National Institute of Health and the research dollars that are being taken away. We know that research is critical, and many of our universities that dedicate themselves to research are young professionals who are young scientists are saying, I'm leaving. I'm not going to stay in America because research is not important, because we're taking dollars away. So many of our budding scientists who are studying now may opt to go to other countries where their talent, their research, their expertise is taken more seriously. The other part that's critically important, Senator, is the component of the big, ugly bill that will make it more difficult for students to get medical degrees,
Yes.
law degrees, rather it's through student loans or other forms of assistance, is diminishing with a lifetime cap that will not even cover 1 year.
No, exactly.
You know, we can muddle through somehow, hook or crook, our parents can help, we can work another job, we can get through undergraduate school. Law school, professional school, medical school is an insurmountable leap for most. And now limiting and taking away these resources through this big, ugly bill is something that we need to educate the American people of these other hidden components of this bill that's going to hurt. And I shouldn't say bill, it's a law that's going to hurt for generations and generations to come.
I mean, you've said it plain. This president is taking a battle axe towards people's health, wellness, and education. And when you take a battle axe towards people's health and their health insurance, they still have medical costs. The question now is who's going to bear the brunt of that? And so hospitals are going to close. We've seen this already, hospitals closing and announcing they're closing because their patients are still going to come. When you have these sort of frontline hospitals, those patients are still going to come, but now nobody's going to be covering those costs. We've seen how families who rely on a transportation program or something that helps their disabled child be able to go to work or to be able to allow them to be engaged so that the parent can go to work. When those programs are cut, those families are devastated because they might end up having to lose a job in order to be able to take care of a loved one. This is going to ripple out. It's like a bomb. When he signed that bill, it's like a bomb went off, and the shrapnel and fallout are going to hit so many lives, and many Americans don't know that. If that hospital closes in your community, that is thousands of jobs directly affected. Not just people employed by that hospital, but the people that do business with that hospital and other small businesses that support that hospital. That's why this is so bad. And again, I'm a competitor. I want to win. I want to stand, fight, win. And when I see what China's doing in the vacuum of us, in other words, they're doubling down on their universities. Right. They're investing in postdoc programs. They're taking passports away from their top scientists as they want to outcompete us in AI and robotics and quantum computing and automated vehicles and battery technology. They want to shape the future by dominating the technologies of the future. We are going after our universities, after the scientists. Even the immigration policies that we have right now are making it difficult for the best minds that have always wanted to come to America. We've so benefited. A good share of the corporations and companies that came out of Silicon Valley were started by immigrants. And this president is making that goose that laid the golden egg. He is taking a horrible, horrible weapon to the very heart of that goose. And so we are seeing what China did in their cultural revolution many generations ago. They first went after their universities. They set their country back a century by attacking universities, attacking higher education, attacking PhD programs and the like. Now we are doing the same thing while China's doubling down. So I'm telling you right now, when you go after a person's health care, it is immoral. It is moral violence when you do that. And you and I, as Christians, men grew up in the church, we know what Matthew 25 says. Where were you? Yes. I do not understand when I looked at your speaker, with all of his preaching, all of his Christian evangelicalism, the poor, the naked, the hungry, the sick. This was a bill that targeted those vulnerable people that are spelled out clearly in Matthew 25. And then when it comes to our economic might and muscle, when you go after institutions of higher education and when you choke the pathways of legal immigration and make it more difficult for the brightest minds and the hardest workers to come and be additive to our economic engine, you are hurting America. This president is a danger to our country's well-being, and he's hurting generations yet unborn. And perhaps one of the biggest reasons he's hurting generations unborn is he's racking up colossal amounts of debt. This wasn't
and many of the fiscal hawks who said they couldn't support this bill they caved. They caved even though they knew and they know the people in their districts that would be irreparably harmed because of this bill. They abandoned that, but then they also abandoned their strongest stand of being a fiscal hawk, of not spending into the future. And now we have far eclipsed the area of overspending and threatening our credit rating, threatening who we are as a nation, and they seem to have just looked the other way.
In a housing crisis, they're doing things to raise interest rates and make it more difficult. They are doing things that are challenging our country's economic well-being for the future. And we know Democratic presidents, Bill Clinton balanced budgets. Barack Obama turned down the amount of deficit spending. We know that we've seen fiscal responsibility, but the most profligate, budget-burning, busting, big spender that's hurt our fiscal stability has been Donald Trump. No president in my lifetime has racked up more debt than he has, and we're going to be paying for that for many
generations to come. Senator, I know that the team is telling me you got votes.
Yes.
We are doing this in the middle of a real day.
Yes.
We're working. We multi-task around here. But I got just very quick questions.
Please.
Democrats are working. This past week, we had Leader Jeffries and members of the Steering and Policy Committee to come to New Orleans, Louisiana. We had a town hall with nearly 500 people,
wow.
Republicans and Democrats coming. And I invited them because I said, your members won't hold a town hall, you can come to ours.
Yes.
Because we're fighting for the American people and for what's right and pure. And we will continue to do more of that across the country to make sure people are ready and prepared for the aspects of this big, ugly bill. One curveball that I know you can hit out the park. Brother, you ran for president.
I did.
And we're hoping you're going to do it again.
I more than you know, I appreciate you. I got to run for re-election this cycle, one election at a time.
Well,
you're not ruled out 28, but I'm gonna focus on re-election.
Well, we want you to do both.
Okay.
Your presence, your being able to articulate the issues, your passion for the people, and your willingness to put all of them and varied backgrounds. America looks like a lot of different things, and we don't always look the same. We're not a monolith. We have different philosophies, different religions, different ideas, different ways of loving. And you have demonstrated the ability to not only be a great listener, but a leader for all. We appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you. As they say, it takes one to know one.
No, God bless you. Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. You can listen to past and future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow my official platforms at Rep Troy Carter and subscribe to my newsletter at troycarter.house.gov. Thanks again, and as we say in Louisiana, laissez-les bon temps rouler. See you next time.